Hello, everybody. This is Joshua Hatton with One Nation Under Whiskey podcast. I am joined today by my co-founder, Mr. Jason, Neil, Patrick, Harris, Johnson, Yeller.
Tell you, man, co-founder. We not to humble brag. We purchased a used car the other day, and calm down. Times are good. That's what Ollie Chilton was asking us, right? How are times in America? That's amazing. Jason's buying a new used car. Easy peasy over here. Anyway, not to humble brag, but we're filling out the financing, and Tamara said to me, "What's your job title?" And I said, "Co-founder." And she looked at me and she was like, "I don't think that's real." I was like, "No, that's my job title." And so on the financing for the used car is co-founder as my employment. Co-founder. So who would have thought 2011 that in the good year 2026 I would have co-founder.
Yeah, right. Right. So then there's your title, but then what's your job description? Wow.
Well,
how many?
Yes.
Yeah.
Everything. And what do you do as co-founder? Everything. So
everything. What do I not do?
Right. That just gave me a chuckle. So one of my favorite photos of myself over these 15 years is closing out Whiskey Jubilee New York City. It was midnight on a weeknight, and I'm sweeping the floor. And that would have been somewhere around 2015, who knows, right? Somewhere in there. But the co-founder is sweeping the floor, right? And it was one of those very proud moments coming from a Southwest Scotland blue-collar family, right? Yeah, you can call the boy a co-founder. He can be in the whiskey industry. That bugger's sweeping the floor at the end of an event. Get your hand on a broom, start bloody sweeping.
Right? I mean, and I think back to, and I'm so glad you brought up the Jubilee because I want to talk about that in a second, but I think back to our dear friend Sam Filmus and being at the Chicago Jubilee, and here we are closing up our 2016, 2017 event, whatever year it is. And dude is grabbing, this is Sam Filmus. This is the president, the founder of Impex Beverages. Dude is grabbing full spittoons. 450 people are spitting into these things, and he's just grabbing them to toss them out. I'm like, you're Sam Filmus, you don't do this.
No, 100%. And we always, in that gathering, need to include James Wills of Kilchoman and Louisa of Arran, who was out doing the exact same thing, the three of them. Right. And that is, if you've ever been to a whiskey festival, that's the worst job in the building. Yeah. And those three just pitched in, helped clean up. Really brilliant. Really speaks to, again, the industry that we're in and how we pitch in and how we do our best. So, I'm glad you bring up that memory as well. So, Jubilee Chicago, what's the relevance? Yeah. He said, knowing the answer.
You've opened the door. I'm going to walk through. Here it is. It is July 8th, which means 2 days ago, tickets to our October 15 Chicago Jubilee went on sale. Our early bird tickets went on sale. $99 a ticket. So there you go. And ticket sales are going quite well, I'd like to say. So
robust.
Nice. Yep.
It's going to be great. The level of excitement, the emails, and again, the people emailing in, hey, love your whiskey, love your podcast. Did I miss tickets? Nope. You were excited, and I love it. You were getting ahead of yourself, and I love it. Early bird tickets, July 6th. Another round of tickets will be available. So even as we sit here, July 8th, it will not be sold out. We are selling rounds of tickets. So all good there. Nobody panic. There's room for us all. And October 15 is going to be good. So from October 15, I bring us back to the nearer future, which is here we are in the midst of our 2-month run on American Spirits.
Yes.
And
American.
really, really wonderful conversation ahead. Alastair Brogan, Boulder Spirits, out in Boulder, Colorado. We're just continuing a list here. Amanda Beckwith with Virginia, Scott Blackwell with Highwire, Caitlin Bartlemy with Clear Creek, and now into Alastair Brogan with Boulder Spirits.
And don't forget Phil Brandon.
Phil
Brandon. Right. You were doing a Josh Hatton incomplete list here.
I was so dedicated there. I was really committed to that, and then I didn't land the plane. That was disappointing. I'm now marooned on an island with Joshua Ailes saying, "You were wrong." Moving on there. But what I was thinking in my head was, we're moving into our first American single malt whiskey as part of our July release schedule. And so that's why I accidentally skipped over Phil with the bourbon there. My bad, that's on me. I will wear that really the rest of this year, maybe into next year. I'm going to feel bad about that for a long time.
Yeah, feel bad.
Joshua just moves on to the next thing, but I really carry the weight of the world on my shoulders.
I don't like to, I just like to move on, right? Feel that pain, move on.
Superpower, right? Man. It's a superpower. Never give that up. Never let Lex Luthor take that from you. So I will say, however, and as a man who used to live in Colorado, summer afternoons into the evening in Colorado, the air will crackle. And so we did have some Wi-Fi issues with Alastair. We did have some tech issues with Alastair. And so there isn't a video recording. And in all honesty, we're always honest with our listeners and our viewers here. We turned off our video. So we still recorded it on our usual platform. But once we turned off the video, we could actually record audio.
So crazy.
But after a few little hiccups in the early running, we got a long, sustained conversation with Alastair. Well worth the time. A Scotsman in Colorado, doing something he didn't foresee himself doing, and producing something that he's very proud of and very careful with. There's a lot to cover in today's episode. So unless you've got some final parting words, Joshua, I would hand it over to us. So pleased to have Alastair Brogan on the episode today. This is a fun conversation we're going to be having. Alastair, you and I already started chit-chatting away before we even hit the record button. And you started giving us a bit of the rundown on how you came to be a Scotsman in Boulder. Do you want to recap that for the listeners and give them that same little intro to yourself?
Thanks, Jason. Yeah, absolutely. So a little bit of background. I lived in Glasgow, was brought up in Glasgow, went to university in Glasgow in Scotland. And just a little town, and went into the military, Air Force, Royal Air Force for 10 years. And then when I came out of that, went into business, was in business for 15 years. And during that time, I met my wife in a restaurant in Tampa, in Florida, of all places. Brought her back to Scotland. We lived there for about 3 years and had 2 children in that time. And 2 children at that time. And then I sold the business unexpectedly and we made the decision together that we could possibly live in America. So I did a little bit of research because she originally came from Pennsylvania, which was too cold, and latterly Florida, which was too hot for us. And we looked at a map, decided to move to Colorado, which I'd been to a few times before, and I love the skiing, I love the mountains, I love the warm weather, especially in the summer. And we decided to move to Colorado And we did that in 2012.
Look at that. So one of the things we've been doing this year is we established in 2011, we're asking people, what were you doing 15 years ago?
Yeah.
15 years ago, you were researching moving to America, and 14 years ago, you moved here. Look at that.
Yeah.
And what a great spot to go to as well. Gosh, do you get the classic Colorado nosebleeds from the dry air?
Not so much. I get the classic Colorado heels all drying up and sore lips and all that. But my kids, constant nosebleeds. It's incredible. And I mean, it puts the dryness of Colorado puts 10 years on you with wrinkles and dryness.
Wow.
But that has a huge impact, which we'll talk about, to the whiskey and the maturation of the whiskey. Huge impact.
I look forward to circling back to that. But you were starting to say before we hit the record button, you moved obviously with your family, but also with a copper pot still, or did the copper pot still follow you?
Well, in the time I was researching coming to the US, I was going to do some consultancy, but that takes time to build that up. New country, new people. So I thought I would maybe start a hobby, and the hobby was going to be making American single malt whiskey. So I went to Forsyth of Rothes, the famed pot still maker up in Rothes in Scotland. In fact, when I ordered the pot still, Macallan had just put an order in the next day, because I read it in the press, for quite a few pot stills. And I phoned Richard Forsyth up, and I said, "Hey, Richard," I said, "are you going to bump me? Are you going to put me in the back of the list now? Macallan has sent you a big order." And he said, "No." He said, your pot still is so small that I can make it in between times." But it's 1,000 gallons. So it's the biggest pot still in Colorado, but it was so small compared to what he was used to making. But even 1,000 gallon pot still is massive. So I put the order in, but that was at the time where there was a lot of orders getting put in, and they had a 3-year waiting list. So I came over to Colorado about a year into that. No, not a year into that. I put the order once I got here, and it took 3 years to deliver. So it was a long, long time to deliver that pot still. So I didn't start laying down whiskey until 2016.
Okay.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. 2016. Okay. And so in those 3 years, what were you doing in those 3 years while you were patiently waiting for the still to arrive?
Well, I thought I was going to be able to do more than I did. But researching this whole US liquor rules and regulations and what you're allowed to do, because I came over very naively, I actually thought, hey, I can make it and I can sell it. But America has got some of the biggest, most difficult restrictions in selling alcohol in the whole world. In the UK, as you know, or most of Europe, free market, sell it online, cross-border selling between countries, not a problem. Here, it's incredibly restrictive and really sort of antiquated. So I spent a lot of time trying to understand that, but also I was going to start bringing blended Scotch over under my brand to private bottle it under my brand. But the rules changed from Scotland in 2012. You're not allowed to bring single malt whiskey over in bottles. In boats. It has to be bottled in Scotland.
Correct.
So that changed the way I looked at it. But to be honest, my kids were 1 and 3 at the time, so I spent a lot of time with them for the first couple of years until we started getting up and running with the whiskey.
I remember those days well. We were around the similar ages when we launched Single Cask Nation. My kids were 5.5 and 1.5.
There you go.
4 and 1, something like that. Joshua's daughters were, I think, 5 and 2.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, 5 and 3.
So I was able to spend a bit of time. Yeah.
Yeah, good. Yeah, sorry, Joshua.
Yeah, so I'm just curious. You came over with the desire to make American. Well, you didn't come over with the desire to make American single malt, but you sought to make American Single Malt. And I'm curious if you had taken inspiration from any American producers or Scottish producers in the design of your still, from a distillation standpoint, right?
Great question, because this was the dilemma when I was over in Scotland, is to try to make those decisions and what kind of still we're going to make for the US. And Richard Forsyth, who's this, I think, third generation, was very, very clear. It was very clear about what kind of still I should have. Now, he makes stills. He's got records of almost every still in the world that's producing single malt whiskey to a certain level. And as you'll know, the still and the design of the still, which creates reflux, creates the whiskey that the new make spirit you're going to have. So he designed, and we spoke about this at a huge lengths. We wanted to make a whiskey that was going to have less reflux, a little bit heavier whiskey. Why a heavier whiskey? Well, new charred oak barrels. If a new single malt whiskey has got more, and I could be challenged in this, it's got a lot more depth and complexity than the big, heavier rye wheats or rye and corns.
No challenge here.
So having a still that will give me first of all, unique whiskey, because almost all stills have got a design difference. It's going to get a new type of whiskey, but give less reflux, heavier whiskey, and it's got a better challenge of not being overtaken by that new char. Because as a single malt whiskey drinker back in Scotland, all American whiskies to me have got a heavy char because we're used to second fill barrels. Yeah. So we're lucky that we've now come out. We are now at 10 years for our single malt. And yes, it's okay. Yes, it's a lot sweeter than most Scotch whiskies because of the new charred oak barrels. But it's not where it could have been if we, for example, had a still that was going to produce a lighter whiskey that could have maybe been overtaken by the barrel. But taking a step back to the influencers, Richard Forsyth and myself, the only people that we both knew were Balcones. Chip Tate in Balcones, who was making some great whiskies at the time. And when I started looking in, so I know that Richard Forsyth had spent many, many hours and considerations with how to make stills for the American market through his consultations with Chip Tate at the time. So I felt pretty good about that.
Yeah, so that's great. Throughout this conversation, you talk about a still. But you don't use the pluralized version of the word.
So
it seems purposeful.
Yeah, so we've only got one still. What you'll normally see is two stills, a strip still and a spirit still. But those are when you are running them at the same time. We are not doing mass production like they do in the Scottish distilleries. So we can get away with one still, which is a spirit still. So we actually do the strips in the actual spirit still. We do two strips and then put that along with heads and tails back into the spirit still to do the final run. So yeah, it takes us a little longer. But we're not in full-time production 24 hours a day. So it saves us quite a lot of, initial capital outlay.
Gotcha. Okay. Mm-hmm. And so to target this sort of this style that you're looking for, right? You've got the one still, you're looking for a heavier spirit. One thing that we didn't talk about, and I definitely want us to discuss the casks, right? Because obviously that's an important part of where you're going to be constructing your flavor. But from a fermentation standpoint, I think of one of your neighbors there in Colorado of Stranahan's, right? And they And they talk quite a bit about their barley, and so I wonder if you could talk a bit about that, your barley, your yeast, your wort, and how you do that. What you're looking from a mashing and fermentation standpoint before distillation.
So when we first started, I wanted to really keep, in essence, to the basics. So have the very best malted barley, have the very best yeast. A lot of distilleries, certainly in Colorado, have maybe ex-brewers who are starting to distill. And what brewers bring to the table is a huge amount of experience in playing with flavors from yeast and also different grains. We were a wee bit more basic than that. We brought in all our malted barley in from the UK. And the reason, and again, this is debatable, the reason for this is because most of the malted barley in the UK has been designed for malt. Really isn't used in whiskey. Maybe 20% in bourbons because of the malted barley being very enzymatic, diastatic power to help that whole process. But they tend to only use it for beer. So what I didn't want to do was take that risk. Now, over the last 10 years, we're doing a lot of collaboration with RØDE Whisky, who we now do a single malt whiskey for, in fact. They're a local farmer, fantastic family farm that give us all their spare malted barley that tends still distillers malted barley, but American distillers malted barley, which doesn't have the same specifications that maybe the Scotch whisky industry has. So it's really interesting to see how that has come off. So we bring our malted barley in from the UK, do a collaboration with RØDE with some of their malts. And as far as the yeast is concerned, again, you mentioned Stranahan's. My understanding is they do a really cool job of self-promulgating their own yeasts. Whereas what we do is we were the first to import AB Mori yeast into the US. So there's probably 4 yeasts in the Scotch whisky industry in Scotland that is used. AB Mori, Lallemand, Kerry's, and I think there's one other. But we wanted a dry yeast that wasn't going to impart any flavours because we wanted the still, the water, the barrels, the climate, and the blending to be where the taste and flavours really are highlighted, rather than starting with something that we might not know what we're getting in the end.
Interesting.
Hopefully that makes sense.
Well, it is one of those kind of ongoing conversations we have where for years Scots producers really paid no heed to yeast. It was all about yield. And now in kind of looking to tell some more stories, they are trying to track some of the flavours that are in yeast. So it's interesting hearing you say, I wanted more of a blank canvas than that. Was there any part of yield in that for you, or was it really just getting the blank canvas that you could add on to?
It was mainly the blank canvas, to be honest. The yield, the yields between, American malt definitely has a little bit of a distiller's malt, definitely has a little bit less yield, but that wasn't as important for me. As it's turned out, a lot of the distillers in the US for single malt was using bourbon yeasts. And there was also a little bit of a question mark in what those bourbon yeasts would do to single malt. Sure. Interestingly, AB Mori's done a lot of research in this, and it didn't have as big an impact as maybe people first thought. So there was a bit of scaremongering in the early days with that. But I bring in AB Mori yeast. It's fantastic yeast. It's a dry yeast. It's easy to use. And the malted barley from Scotland. But as I said, we now are playing a lot with local malted barley because, wow, it gives a completely different taste and flavour to your whiskey.
Wow.
Yeah. And
that's great.
But you know, Balcony started this way. Balcony started with traditional yeast, importing their malted barley in from Scotland, Virginia Distillery did exactly the same. There's quite a few that started that way, and once they started varying it as the years went by, and that's really what we are doing.
So I think we're trying to be careful with where we're jumping into the story here, but in points of interest here, what have you learned? What have you seen firsthand as you've started making this transition from the reliance on Scottish to the experimentation on the American? Anything surprising you in there as you're watching this?
As far as the barrels or the malt is concerned.
Yeah. In terms of what you're producing over there, what you're seeing running from your own still.
So yes, it's a little bit of a heavier whiskey, but it's there a little bit to combat. I'm not saying that it combat, but combat to a degree the new charred oak barrels. We flip between a number 2 and number 3 char. We blend them in together. Reasonably standard, but as I say, when people come to the tasting room and they have our single malt whiskey for the first time, the two things that they bring up, if they're Scotch whiskey drinkers or single malt whiskey drinkers from around the world, they'll just go, "Whoa, that's sweet." Yes, because it's a new charred oak barrel. They'll go, "That's okay." Yes, because it's a new charred oak barrel. So we're finding, but that interestingly is a bit of the flavour profile Americans are used to. They're used to the char, they're used to the sweetness, maybe sweetness off the corn for bourbons, but they're used to more, they're certainly used to more sweetness and a lot more oakiness. Now, the local malted barley that we use gives an incredibly robust, earthy flavour. So it's a very, very different whiskey when you use local grains, a completely different whiskey. So that's what we're experimenting with at the moment.
That's wild. But then you were also starting to say you've now reached 10 years on your single malt. So are you able to start using some of that new charred oak as second fill within your own distillery?
Exactly. So, nice. It's a debate. I mean, I know certainly Balcones, I know a couple other people are using second fill barrels more and more. We laid down about 20 barrels 3 years ago of second fill barrels. But here's the thing: you're now so close to Scotch whiskey that do we as a community of American single malt whiskey producers want to do that? Because
I like that.
A lot of us are winning phenomenal awards right up against Scotch whiskey, great awards, but we are in new charred oak barrels. So there is an appetite for that difference, and maybe it's the way the Americans stamp that difference on the world, rather than try to copy or look as though they're trying to copy Scotch.
Yeah, I like that consideration. It's one of the things we always talk about in presenting American single malt is, obviously people say, what's the difference between Scotch and American single malt whiskey? Or what's the difference between bourbon and American single malt whiskey? And so I like this kind of conscious take on, here's what we'd like to be. Here's how we'd like to present. And again, you're not speaking on behalf of an entire category. You're speaking on behalf of an entire distillery. So the opportunity for you to say, really, I'm kind of living in between these two worlds, producing my own thing. When do you feel like you came to that realization that you could make your own thing and you didn't have to follow a particular path?
Well, I think early on, there wasn't. Even 10 years ago, there wasn't that many people making American single malt. So I think we all felt, the community that were making single malt, that we were actually doing something very different anyway. But as it becomes bigger, I mean, some of the big guys like, Yellowstone or Westward, Westland, who are bigger producers, are going down their path. And so we've got to try and maybe smaller guys need to differentiate themselves a little more. I think during the debate of new oak versus second fill oak that really happened just before the TTB gave the standard recognition for American single malt whiskey, a lot of us, some of us decided, no, we'll stick to new oak. That's going to be our thing, because it gives a lot of the flavors that Americans are used to, but it's still a single malt whiskey. So that might change. I mean, we're laying down a little bit more second fill barrels, and we'll see how those integrate to the blending process. Because we can blend them. We can do them separately and then blend them together if we decide to do that. But that would come offline for another 3-4 years.
Okay. While we're just in this area, could you speak a bit to your blending ideas, your blending philosophy?
I think we're small. There's a small group of us that really, when we decide to blend the barrels, we don't have any climate control. Unfortunately, a lot of our barrels are stored where we can fit them around the raw materials at the time, which isn't, but that's fun, because what's fun about it is we bring 10 barrels down and we bring in a few people who we have got a lot of respect for, they've got great palates, great noses. We sit down and we just go through each and every one, take our notes. And what is amazing, what I always find amazing, is how can each barrel be so different, and they're made the exact same way, coming off the still at the same time, same batch of barrels, same yeast, same everything, even sometimes on the same pallet that has been moved around. They are subtle, but there is still differences in them. So we love that process. We love that process. But the philosophy is really, we sit and we try not to influence each other, because the power of suggestion is powerful. So we tend to rank our whiskies. Rank our whiskies in proof, rank our whiskies in barrels, and then trying to get almost a collaborative outcome of that, to try and keep it as close to our previous batch or previous batches as we can. But that's hard.
That's part of what I was driving at in my question as well, was kind of like, what does batch variance look like for you? And is that a thing you take ownership for? Is that an aspect where you try to smooth the wrinkles between batches? It sounds like you're trying to implement some consistency, but I assume you still take ownership of, there is still a slight difference, because whiskey geeks love stuff like that.
Yeah, we take ownership of that. We even go back to maybe 2 batches prior, because you could get a lot of drift if you just do it by the batch before.
Yeah.
So there's that drift. But, there's a successful single malt whiskey distiller here in Colorado that just really single barrels. That's it. And every single barrel will be different. Every batch is going to be more different than say ours. And I think most of our customers, or most of our people, they embrace that rather than push it away.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Hopefully.
With that in mind, who are your customers? Who are the people that come to you naturally from a flavor perspective, and who are the people that you want to bring into the fold?
We spend a lot of our time trying to get people to taste our products.
Yeah.
We all do. I mean, all the craft distilleries do. So we do a lot of events, and I love doing these events. We've got a tasting room, our secondary tasting room actually, on Pearl Street, where we have a lot of out of state tourists coming in. And, I love standing there listening to what they have to say when they tell me that they only love rye, and suddenly they taste an American single malt whiskey and they love it. And that's the thing. It's opening up the palate of people who are inquisitive about it. So I would suggest that the majority of people that come into our store are looking for something slightly different. So getting them to taste it, trying to explain it. And that's where you're going to start changing people, not changing people's minds, just pushing them towards experimenting with other tastes and flavors. So a good example of this was we are distributed in the UK, and I did a tour of Scotland of the main whiskey stores because in Scotland, you don't have a lot of the whiskey enthusiasts don't go to the grocery stores where they have very few whiskies. They go to the local town's whiskey specialist almost. And what amazed me was the people who came into the shop that I was doing tastings for, they just wanted something a little different and wanted to experiment. And, I was blown away with how much even Scotch whiskey drinkers appreciated American single malt whiskey for all the differences.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
that's very good to hear.
I know.
Yeah, it makes me think about being at the Independent Spirits Festival a couple of years ago when we had a single cask of Westland on the table. And all these fans of independent bottlers were walking around just like, what have you got? What can I taste? And the Westland just blew people away. They bought it on the spot. And so it's nice to see people move beyond those biases. You're talking about people who come in and say, I like rye. Think of many people walk into, rooms and say, I only drink Scotch. And you're like, well, let me try your American single malt whiskey. We're always looking to find those bridges. So I'm glad people were able to put their biases to the side and really taste it for what it was. I also want to circle back here because I was just looking up the label that we've got for our single cask of Boulder Spirits that we're honoured to be collaborating with you on, Alastair. Thank you for that.
Likewise.
But I was checking the flavometer on the back. So we score various categories out of 10. And I was looking at richness as we're having this conversation. And on our label, it is 8 out of 10. And on oak, we're showing 6 out of 10. And so I feel like we're really demonstrating what you're talking about in today's conversation.
Well, I didn't know that you ranked it 6 out of 10 for oakiness, and that really pleases me because the danger was from day one that you could just because I've tasted vastly over oaked single malts at 8 or 9 years, and I think that's because of nothing that the distiller's doing other than maybe the still, I would suggest, is making very, very a lot of lighter whiskies, a lighter new make. So that pleases me. 6. I mean, we're just about to launch our 10 year, and we might get to a few bottles of 14, but I think it's going to really stop at about 14. I think that might be the life cycle of it.
Okay. I have to correct myself here. We have a 7 on Oaky.
I was going to correct you, Jason.
Okay.
I was going to correct you.
Yeah, okay. We have a 7 on Oaky, and then it's 6 on spice, 6 on sweet. But what a story that's telling about the cask and about the whiskey. That's the whole reason we selected this cask.
Yeah, I think
one of the questions. Oh, go ahead.
No, sorry, go on. Well, no, I was going to start talking about the maturation, but you asked your question first.
Okay.
No, that's exactly where I was leading you. So if you did go to talk about maturation,
and there you go. There
perfect.
you go. You go first, and then I'll follow up.
Perfect. Thanks for picking up what I was putting down, Alastair.
Okay, this is not rehearsed. I think one of the most surprising things that I've found here in Colorado, and is the impact the microclimate has on that whiskey. Mm-hmm. And we've got 2 things that happen here in Colorado. The first thing is we have a huge swings in temperature, which is swings in pressure, which the barometric changes are immense here in Colorado. It can be 90 degrees in the day, and it can drop to 50 at night. And it's incredible. I mean, you'll remember that from Fort Collins.
I do indeed.
Yeah. So we are now going through, our angel share evaporation is 4% per annum. Whereas, you go to, Scotland, I'm not going to quote figures there, but it's far, far, far less. So our barrels are breathing at an unprecedented rate. And then that's the first impact that our climate has. The second impact is because it's so dry here that it's just sucking those water particles out at a different rate. So we'll put our whiskey in. Now, in Colorado, a lot of the distilleries are putting their whiskey in at a lower proof. So rather than the sort of standard 120, I know of distilleries putting it at 105. We don't quite go down to that, but maybe 110 to 120 we'll put in. But we just opened a barrel not so long ago because of that. You know, the water particles coming out so fast. The proof then rises. The wine gallons goes down quite a bit, but the proof rises. So our proof gallons then is equated. But, you know, we brought one out at 83.3 ABV.
Holy crap.
and
what's above hazmat?
Oh, way above. Way above.
He was on fire as you were pulling it from the cask.
It was, no, we're not allowed to have any sharp, steel toe capped shoes in the distillery. No lighters.
No sparks allowed.
No sparks allowed. But that came out incredible, absolutely incredible. I mean, we had very few bottles of it, but that's the kind of proof that it's coming out at. But they're going to be rare because most distilleries in Colorado are putting it in a bit less than 120 now, because of that. Because putting in a little less, you know, in theory helps it slows down the evaporation. And what a lot of distilleries are doing, and we've done it with some of our barrels, is, you know, 6 years into it, we're adding water to it while it's in the barrel and then leaving it for another few years. So you're
interesting.
Yeah.
So what you're doing is you're basically filling up that dead space in the barrel, and that dead space in the barrel, the more dead space you have in the barrel, the more you accelerate the evaporation out of the wood. So adding a little bit more water to it helps, and adding helps in filling that dead space.
Yeah, I'm thinking about the absorption by the oak as well, as you're kind of reducing that strength, and what that does, or even where you're claiming, you know, new char levels, hitting new char levels on those casks as well, as you're filling that space. You gave kind of that extreme example of the whiskey you put out at 83% ABV.
Yeah.
What generally do you see for strengths coming out of casks around your warehouse?
Around 155 proof.
Okay.
If it's been put in at 120, 155 is very, very common.
Okay. God.
I know.
Wow, that's almost that itself is almost up to 80%. Gosh.
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay. Cool. Thanks for that, Alastair.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Joshua, you were leading us.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think a lot of this leads into the question I have, right? You've got all of these environmental considerations that come into play, your char levels, the weightiness of the spirit. And as I'm hearing you talk about all this, I'm nosing some of our cask. I poured some. I just couldn't help myself. And I'm going back to our notes, and I'm reading notes on an American Single Malt that I don't know if we've ever written notes like this before. And I'm curious to know if this is house style for you, if you find this in your malt as sort of a, common flavors. So I'm just going to throw some notes at you really quickly.
Yeah.
So on the nose, and I've got to warn you, Jason uses some flowery language. He was a professor of philosophy, so he likes to get really flowery here. So here we go. Nose, lovely opening of cranberry sauce and stewed apricots, unlit clove cigarettes, fresh cut red stalk rhurbarb. And here's where Jason comes into play.
I was going to say, these are all Joshua Hatton notes.
Those
so
are
far,
Joshua Hatton notes. Yeah, no, those are proper Joshua Hatton notes.
But I do know what you're about to say next.
Yeah. A note reminiscent of a sojourn through a pine forest.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa.
But, as we go on in the palate, there's raspberry jam and there's toasted sesame seeds and chocolate covered raspberries. It's very red fruit forward, tartness and juiciness. And I'm just curious, is this common for Boulder Spirits or what you would expect?
The apricot, absolutely, no question about it.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that it's the red fruits on the palate, because that's what we, it's a common theme from our tastings, but sorry, our self tastings, but also to other customers. So I try not to explain what we've got, and I love when people pull out what we think we've got in there. So, for example, there's one distillery here. It's banana, and I don't want to be banana, but I'm fat. And you lay down your spirit and you take your chances a little bit. You don't know exactly what's going to come out of that barrel each time. But the apricot, absolutely, and the red fruits, absolutely. No, I love that. Thank you. Yeah. No, that pleases me.
Oh, I'm glad. Well, I tell you what, sipping on this, I'm very pleased myself. So, thank you. Mm-hmm. This is such a glorious cask of whiskey, and we could not be more excited or proud to be collaborating with you on it. So we really thank you for that.
No, absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah. This is always exciting for us to get a new collaboration on the books and to be, telling a Boulder story and a Colorado story and an Alastair Brogan story. Like these are really wonderful moments, and to kind of further what you've been working on with your distillery. And I'm curious, Alastair, we start out talking about how you got established and moving over here. And I do have a question for you, which is, we were all so focused on ratification, and I know the efforts that went into it, and I know Steve Hawley leading that charge with the commission and all the members. And I'm curious for you, especially with people coming into your tasting room, have you seen ratification move the needle? Has it changed how people have thought? Do people have no idea that ratification's even a thing? Well, what's your experience on the ground around the official categorization of American single malt whiskey?
I think Steve Hawley has done a phenomenal job, and all credit to him. He really sort of rounded the troops, kicked ass.
That sounds like him.
Oh my goodness! I mean, I think there's an annual survey that they put out, and if you've not returned the annual survey, you're named and shamed. And but he gets results, and that's great. So I think, I think everybody thought as soon as we get ratification, bloody hell, the shelves will be empty. Not true. Yeah. I think we haven't seen a massive difference, and I think the reason for it is those whiskey enthusiasts knew about it anyway, knew what the differences were, knew what the rules were. So it's the masses, the people who are peripheral drinkers or peripheral explorers of whiskey. Those are the people that we still need to educate. But that's going to take longer than 1, 2, 3 years. It's going to take a long time. So I think there's definitely going to be an uptick, but that uptick's going to be over a longer period of time. The more people that come into our tasting room, any of our tasting rooms, the 150 distilleries that are doing single malt whiskey, And, it's one consumer at a time. It's one person at a time to introduce them to American single malt whiskey. I don't know what the number of tastings we do, but, maybe 2,000 people a year taste our products, and we tell the story to, whether it be events, tasting rooms or whatever. So multiply that by 150, it's a chip away over the next 4 or 5 years.
Yeah. Do you feel like that categorization at least is something to build upon? You're maybe not wandering in the desert quite so much?
I think it gives the producers a bit like, when, whether it be the Bottle Bond Act or in the 60s with the bourbon, it gives suppliers suppliers, first of all, clarity on what they have to do. And it gives them a hook for the consumers in saying this is an actual category. I mean, most consumers struggle to tell you even the rules of, what ryes are, American ryes, wheats, etc. Yeah. They might know a little bit about bourbons, but when I tell them that all bourbons go in new charred oak barrels, the rest of the world tend to put their whiskey in second fill barrels, they're blown away at that. So there's a long road to go for that, because
But isn't it amazing as well? And you just reminded me a second ago. You tell people that bourbon was categorized in the 1960s. Like, isn't your response, hasn't bourbon always been bourbon since the beginning of time? What do you mean there was a categorization in the 60s? Like, that's mind-boggling. To be here with American Single Malt just beginning that journey, there's a lot of track ahead.
There's a lot, yes. I still get people from Kentucky coming into the distillery and telling me I'm not allowed to make bourbon because it's not made in Kentucky.
Right.
And so, with a smile on my face, I tell them that's not true. But yeah, I mean, it was only 70 years ago that bourbon actually, came into existence in the way it is now with the rules. So there's a long way to go. But I think the answer to your question is there's an undercurrent that is starting to happen. Has it had an impact in sales? Maybe not quite as much as we would hoped, but I think we just got to bide our time.
Nice one.
Yeah. Yep. So just one last little thing for you here as we sort of cast our eye to the future, right? We've, Jason and I, we've got 15 years under us, and we're looking at what our next 15 years is. And here you are 14 years into it. And you even said yourself, well, maybe 14 years might be the maximum number of years for your whiskey. So, as you cast your eyes forward and you're looking at age statements on your whiskey and maybe going to second fills, like overall, what does your future look like for Boulder Spirits?
I think, we'll fight the good fight is regarding our flagship American Single Malt whiskey. And that's going to be our sort of our lead charge as far as our branding, marketing, etc. is concerned. To first of all educate people, get them into American Single Malt whiskey. Then, what I hope will start growing is the other things that single malt whiskey can give you, whether it be finished single malt whiskey, whether it be cask strength single malt whiskey, whether it be the multitude of finishings you can do, which is a bit of a smaller market and more niche. And we can only do, a few barrels. We laid down a cognac finished single malt as an experiment, just really from the tasting room. And wow, it came out unbelievable. It's my favorite at the moment, but I still go back to the flagship single malt. So I think as the years go by, the development of other things, as people are becoming more educated, they move from single malt to maybe finished single malt. We've even got peated single malt whiskey on at the distillery, very lightly peated, but it's still peated single malt whiskey. So I think that development in other things, I know some of the distilleries literally stopped doing peated or they stopped doing finished and really focused on their core flagship and aged, older whiskies. But no, I think as time goes by, the market's going to be similar to the offerings are going to be similar to the single malts throughout the world.
Yeah.
Very nice. Very nice. Well, listen, I love your passion, your enthusiasm, your belief, your good collaboration, and honestly, good luck with those UK sales as well. I know you're fighting the good fight in Colorado and the rest of America, but good luck with the UK as well. Are there any other countries that you want to throw in here that you're represented in?
Well, interestingly, up until, and we won't go political, but we were doing pretty well in Canada of all places. We were doing really well in Canada. In the UK, it was more of a European, because they don't have any restrictions of cross-border sales. So we were having people come in and had tasted our products in Germany, but we don't sell in Germany, we sell in Italy, but the Italians sent it over to Germany. So we're 3 or 4 or 5 countries in Europe. But interestingly, we did quite a bit into South Africa. We did a shipping container of our single malt, PT port cask finish into South Africa.
Oh, nice.
Because I think there is a little bit of more of a knowledge of what single malt whiskey is in those sort of regions than there are maybe in sort of mainline America. So, Canadians know what their single malt whiskies are, Europeans a little bit more. I wouldn't have said South Africans, but obviously they do. So
they do.
We've exported to those countries in small amounts, but it's fantastic to hear that we've got our stuff there. It really is.
That's magnificent as well. Well, wind beneath your sails, Alastair. I hope it continues to be onwards and upwards. And again, we're excited to get this single cask out in front of the nation. And we'll be sure to send you a bottle to pop on a shelf in the tasting room as well.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you, sir.
Well, thanks so much. No, I appreciate this. As you know, we all love talking about, all the distilleries love talking about their whiskey. It's just, and I love the great questions, and thanks for your time as well.
Huge thanks to Alastair for taking out the time in his busy day to talk to us. It was funny when I first reached out to him on the phone. I was not expecting a Scottish accent.
That's fair. You've said that to me for over 15 years. So
I mean, I still don't get the Scottish accent from you.
You don't. Yeah. You can be. Sorry, I didn't mean to reveal. Remember, our video's back on now. So, hello, everybody. I'll put the whiskey back down.
But I listening back to the conversation that we had, I really enjoyed a few things that he's doing. I like that he's bringing a Scottish tradition, right? He brought a Forsyth still over, but he's clearly in the U.S. and he's embracing the American side of things, and so he's stitching together 2 traditions. And embracing that, and I really enjoyed that, and I felt that through the conversation.
Yeah, absolutely, and again, as I was saying leading into the interview, he's a proud Scotsman, but he's also become a proud Coloradoan and a proud Boulderite, perhaps. So yeah, there's a lot that he's carrying there. I also, of course, love that he gives a shout out to Steve Hawley there. We will have a future extra with Steve Hawley where we catch up with the commissioner, the American Single Malt Whisky Commission, see how things are going post-ratification, just like we were talking to Alastair about there. So, our listeners know, our viewers know, the nation knows we're passionate American Single Malt Whisky supporters, and having a chance to put this Boulder
into a single cask nation bottle,
Yes.
and put that in front of the nation, and a brand new collaborator, someone for the nation to discover for the very first time. I love that, and I say the very first time through us. I'm sure a lot of them know Boulder Spirits, have experienced it.
They have to,
but
yeah.
through our lens. So speaking of, and I already did a grand reveal. You started talking about this. You just couldn't help yourself, dude. You were kind of like, man, as we're talking about maturation, as we're talking about these casks, I gotta pour some of this. I gotta be talking about some of this. And you went through some of the official notes we've got here.
I did, and the reason being, I hadn't tasted this since we said yes to it, and so I wanted to go back to it just to be reminded and really taste it with the producer himself.
Of course,
I think that was kind of an important thing to be doing, to see what he's putting into it. Right. Let's think back to our conversation about terroir, quote unquote terroir, or a sense of place, and what the producer's thumbprint upon the grain, upon whatever they're using to make that final product. And so in nosing and tasting this whiskey, I wanted to hear from him what he's doing with his raw materials to get to this final product.
Well, in that moment in your tasting note where you said apricots are exactly what we get as part of our house style. So just like we talk about Glenmurray house style and how we track that in the casks that we're sampling and putting into bottle for the nation, we've always got the DNA of the new make spirit. I think you're spot on in talking to Alastair about his DNA. We talk about Glenmurray all the time, the casks we select from there. We know the new make spirit quality. We know that bright pear fruit note from Glenmurray, and we track that through our casks. When we now speak to Alastair and we're thinking Boulder Spirits, now we're thinking apricots from the man himself. So I think that's a lovely kind of jumping off point for us to return to our tasting here. I'm so excited to get tasting on this again.
Yeah, so am I. And I love what he said, and we do this a lot in our tastings, right? Where we want to hear from the people who we're doing seminars with. We want to hear the notes from them because we don't always want to lead the witness. And so, as I'm nosing this, I'm getting the red rhubarb stalks. I'm getting the cranberry sauce, all of that. And that's what he said. We don't throw that out there. We know it's in there. We wait for people to give it back to us.
Yeah.
Because it's nice to be, it's nice to hear that confirmation that other people are getting what we're getting. And I know when I do tastings, I love hearing that too. Like when we write tasting notes, when people throw them back at us.
Oh yeah.
It's so nice to hear that,
Yeah, it was your line of unlit clove cigarettes that I think we've got the apricots, we've got the red fruits, we've got the clove, and for me, those unlit clove cigarettes connect through to the wood. And in our interview today, talking about number 2 and number 3 char, where he doesn't want to overwhelm with the wood, he is talking about that lower entry proof for the spirit, but then Colorado taking it up. And so the nose doesn't overwhelm with the wood. That's why, as you read out, a note reminiscent of a sojourn through a pine forest. That's a pleasant experience. That's
really
where
is.
you can take in the wood on your own terms and have it influence your day, your walk, your mood, right? All really wonderful things. Yeah. I think on that very note, actually, it makes me think what he was saying there, and this very much echoes what we hear from Amanda all the time at VDC, Virginia Distillery Company. But he's using his casks to build blends, and he talked about the in-house blending that they've got on over there.
Yeah, I like that.
And I think that's one of the things you and I had found with this cask was
this gave us the opportunity for a bit of a single cask nation project, and projects are the things we used to do. We used to get up to, and we've been busy boys over the last couple of years, and so this opportunity to bring this in and ask ourselves that question: what is this cask doing? What do we want to present in the form of this cask? And very much to Alastair's point there, you can go really high in proof here, and we definitely had a sample that was up in those higher 120s, 130s, 135s.
It was up there.
Right? And so we had a chance to experiment with a project, and we played around with water. What's it doing at this? What's it doing at that? You and I always talk about it. What's texture doing? What's aroma doing? How are the fruits and the oak living together? And we had a blast bringing all of that together. And we settled on 55.5% alcohol here for this cask, which is, how's your quick math, Joshua? 111 proof.
111 C's, yeah.
Which we didn't know at the time, and really only found out in today's interview. We almost took it back to barrel filling strength.
That's a very good point.
Right?
That's so interesting.
Right. Without even knowing, we almost took it right back by 1 proof, 0.5% ABV.
0.5%. Wow. Oh, I like that. Isn't that interesting that it brought that back to what its origin ABV was?
Right.
Oh, I like that. Yeah, that was fun, and it reminds me of what we've done with some of our rums, where we receive those rums at a 75% alcohol.
Big.
Right. Those were maturing in the place of origin, in tropical climates, and so it gave us the opportunity to say, what can water do here to bring it to what is that single cask nation texture, right? How can we bring it all together for a single cask nation bottling, right? To combine the two, right? What are they doing with distillate? What are we doing to make it a single cask nation bottling?
Right. And at the end of the day, cask strength, right? 55.5. For again, cask strength as well defined as terroir. But we have always saying for the length of our company, we've taken cask strength as 50% ABV and above, and we've unless it was an older whiskey that had naturally fallen into the 40s, and without a touch of water, that's what came out of cask. That would still be cask strength.
Yeah, natural cask strength.
Right.
Oh,
really tasty.
The apricots just come back. It's stewed. It's rich. There's a density here, but it's not like heavy. There's a softness to it, which I quite like.
Even long, several months ago now, before we had the conversation with Alastair, we had stewed apricots in 2 places in our tasting notes. Had it on the nose, had it on the palate. Look, again, oak spice starts to come through on the palate. Brown baking spices connecting to the clove on the nose. Cracked pepper, a little nutty. Right? That's coming through sure. Right there.
Yeah, I remember our original tasting notes, had that raspberry jam with the seeds. It had chocolate covered raspberries, but now I'm getting, people of our age, especially Americans, would remember, and I've brought this up before, they would remember that old candy Red Hot Dollars, which is basically raspberry chews. It's almost candied raspberries. And I'm getting that there. It's this lovely sweetness coming through.
Holy moly.
Yeah, what do you got?
I'm just sitting amongst the spice and just allowing the chocolate and the red fruit and the stewed fruits to just kind of interplay. And then there's just this lovely little toasted sesame seed nuttiness.
going on. I think the barley, the malted barley, is present there in the nuttiness, and then this kind of evolving toasted sesame seed quality.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Pleasantly drying along the inside of my mouth. Makes me want to take another sip.
There's a nice honeyed quality to this toward the finish. Just soft. Again, it's with all that you have the pepper on one side and then the softness on the other side, soft fruits, and then the bright red fruits. I mean, there's so many things happening here that just all balance themselves out. This has come together so nicely.
And that's exactly the name of the game with our little SCN project, right? If this for Alastair is a blending component that fits within other opportunities to present a singular experience, that's what we have got going on here. Yeah, that's a really special American single malt whiskey there. I'm excited to put that in front of the nation.
Yeah.
And also, I will say before you wrap up there, I will also say putting this next to the Jimmy Red is going to be really interesting. Is that what you were about to say?
I was going to say, like, people with a bourbon palate, I think will really be drawn, right?
Yeah.
There's a wide, there's a gap between the two, but there's a
we've bifurcated.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For me, it's a Y-shaped tuning fork. Maybe they don't come in any other shapes. But if you're approaching the bourbon drinker, we've taken the Jimmy Red over here, which is a bourbon with such beautiful spice to it and cinnamon, and we've taken a turn over here with the Boulder Spirits, which are these stewed red fruits with the oak spice. Bourbon lovers, we've got you surrounded. Like, give these two a try. Holy moly. Yeah, these are genre hoppers, I would say. Still in the American single malt category and still in the bourbon category, but with flavor profiles that travel. Those are...
Yes.
Yeah, we wouldn't have bottled them otherwise, but as we always say, when we return to these long after selection, it's nice to remember why we selected them, and nice to be persuaded that they're going to resonate with the nation.
And I think, too, just as an independent bottling company, I think it's nice to remember why we do what we do. I think back to the very first time we bottled American Single Malt, which was 2014, 12 years ago now. And it's this idea of trying to show people a style of whiskey that they didn't know. And it's always this idea of bringing people in, but showing people a distillery they may not be familiar with. And the number of people who have come to us and said, I discovered Westland through you. Thank you. I've discovered Glen Murray through you. Thank you. VDC through you. Thank you. If people are going to come here and discover Boulder through us, awesome. Grab our bottle. Thank you. Also check out their own bottlings.
100%.
It's fantastic whiskey. What they do, they're blending, back to what you had said before. What they do with their own blending, I think is really sharp. It's really nice. They're really good whiskeys, really well made. So, agreed wholeheartedly.
I'll give the truncated note just to get out of here on our little tasting. But stewed fruits lead the charge with brown baking spices and cracked pepper behind. The finish is warm compote spread on warm sourdough toast. That sounds like a drinker. Doesn't that sound like a drinker?
Yeah, I want sourdough toast right now. Zevy's got to send me up some of this.
I know, right? Yeah. I'm wrapping this and going into the house for some warm compote on warm sourdough toast. Cheers to Alastair on the back of that, and cheers to the nation once we get this released later in the month of July. So
yeah,
brilliant.
So you'd said this from the outset, right? We've got July. We have 6 different American whiskey releases. The first 4 that we've talked about are 4 new collaborations. Do I have that number right? Highwire. Right.
Rocktown.
Hood River.
Clear Creek. Yep.
Clear Creek, Hood River. And then now this with Boulder, that's 4 new collaborative partners in play.
Yep. And then our 5th will be a new, and our 6th will be a return.
Yeah.
So I'll leave it there.
Yeah, there you go. So, Jason, as always, thank you. Thank you to the listeners and to the viewers.
Of course.
If you've viewed this and you've not subscribed yet, we're like dads. We're not upset. We're just disappointed.
What do you mean we're like dads? We are dads.
Oh shit! Yeah, we are dads.
We are disappointed perpetually, but we're not angry.
We're not angry, just disappointed. But please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Tickle the little bell below so you're alerted of new episodes. It's not just new episodes. There are tasting videos. We have a slate of tasting videos. Bye, honey. It's my daughter and her boyfriend going out for a little swim at the beach. We have tasting videos that are going to be coming out, plus, maybe some other things. And what else? What else can we tell people?
I would say go to singlecastnation.com and feel free to buy bottles even when we're not releasing.
I fucking love that. That's one.
I love seeing you in the retro t-shirt as well. The retro bundles went out last week, so people have been getting their there's a few bits and bobs that people have been receiving, so hopefully some photos might start showing up of those. I will say no more, but yeah, we're trying to close out the grey retro labels on the website. Your help is always appreciated. There's fun summer drinkers in there. We've almost got no New York Distilling rye left. You can go help clear that out. The Backwoods Going Great Australian Rye, the Isle of Arran peated. Was it peated that I had in my bundle? Yeah, very peated.
There's
of course,
a handful left.
A handful of that left. So see some grey labels, buy up some grey labels, drop us an email after you buy one. Maybe I'll send you something. We'd love to take care of the nation, so we're into freebies. So treat yourself, buy something fun, and keep supporting us just like we're supporting new collaborations. So until next time, Joshua,
hold on, last thing,
tickets for Whisky Jubilee remain on sale.
They remain on sale, so you can find links to those tickets in your email, in our Facebook group, but also a link from our website. So go to singlecastnation.com, grab the aforementioned bottles, but once you're done grabbing those bottles, click that link, go to the Whisky Jubilee ticketing page, grab your tickets. If you don't live near or around Chicago, then go to your local airline ticketing page and grab your airline tickets. There are a lot of people who are doing just that. They've said, I bought my tickets, I've just booked my hotels. When are tickets going on sale? They're on sale. If you haven't grabbed your tickets, grab them now.
Yeah, come hang out, come celebrate. We'll have nothing but special pours throughout the room.
All right, now we can say goodbye, Jason. I've deemed it okay to do so.
Godspeed.
Cheers.